Welcome back to another message crawler update. Today we're talking about new file format, and it is Teams HTML. Teams HTML. Teams usually comes in the PST format, and that is exactly what's changing. Microsoft is going to be pulling support for PST file format, and they're going to be using HTML as their primary format for exporting team messages. That's what I heard, and I received a sample data of what that is going to look like. And today we're going to quickly look at that data, as well as I'm going to show you a new tool that I've built to convert that. Now, this tool is in the early stages, and there are also a number of things that are broken with the file format, but we'll get to all that in time. Right now, let's jump to the screen and take a look at the sample data. Now, the sample data was given to me by ProSearch. So thank you guys very much, first of all, for alerting me that this new file format exists, for sending me sample data, and allowing me to use this sample data in the video, which is actually very hard to find, sample data that could be shared with others, which I'm not going to share, but I will use it in the video. Again, thank you, ProSearch. Let's go to my screen and take a look at the format of Teams HTML. And so when you go to the folder, it looks like this. There is no HTML. What we do have is we have some of these CSV files. So we have warnings, errors, and we have some folders with error files and native files. And if we navigate to native files, you'll see that there are HTML files along with just loose edocs. And the way this format works is these HTML files are actually chat conversations. So entire conversation seem to be stored in one HTML file. And then attachments are the normal attachments, they just saved as files. Now they aren't how they look in this folder, meaning this HTML doesn't have these three attachments. They just kind of how they sort it here. And the way to figure out what attachment goes with what HTML file is by using this export load file, that's CSV. So it's a little bit of a weird file format, and to be honest, I'm still trying to figure out the best way of parsing it. There are a few oddities in it, but so far I've built a tool that will read the CSV file that's going to point to these native files, pull native files in, and along with them figure out where the attachments are and ingest those in as well. This attachments folder, this is what message crawler creates when it loads data. These are all the pictures that are either embedded or downloaded from HTML, which are going to be fine, and they're going to be embedded into RSMF file. So let's go to message crawler and load the CSV file. I'm going to go to import, and we're going to select Teams HTML preview. So I indicate this is like a preview tool because it's an early version of it, and things may change and things may need to be refined. So I am going to leave everything as default, and I'll explain to you what these things are later. I'll click on import CSV. I'm going to pick my export file, click open, and it's going to go through all these HTML files. And once it's done, I'm going to say load to grid. Now, what we have here is our standard control number, group identifier, our message type, who the message was sent from, the date, the actual body of the message. So we have a number of things here, and then all the way on the right we have our attachment information, so we know where the attachment is. So all the usual message crawler stuff, right? It'll map things automatically for you, and you don't have to worry about too much unless you want to, of course. Some of the bonus fields here, we have conversation type. Not totally sure what to do with this, but I do extract it and it's available. We have a conversation ID and a conversation name. All right. Now, if we scroll down, we have something weird here. And what the CSV file contains is it has some edocs. It basically just lists loose files that are not associated to any of the messages. I found it to be really weird, but I am pulling that in just in case. And so that's what we see listed here below. And they're marked as edocs. We have path to them, so everything how it needs to be. And you can create RSMF with these. Not totally sure if it makes sense, but it's there. Now, the other option we saw at the import is a CSV fields to include. So CSV has a lot of fields, like there's just tons and tons of columns, and most of them aren't needed. But if you find a column that you think is needed, you can just paste a list of columns here, and those will be added all the way to the right, as we saw here, conversation ID, name, and so on. So these are additional columns that were extracted. They are not necessary for RSMF conversion. Well, the two column, I guess, is nice to have, but they will be included, and you can add others. And the other option we saw include edocs. Again, if the file class is document, there are other file classes like a message as an attachment, so those will be imported, and this is something else. So those are generally the two options you have. So do you want to load edocs, and what kind of fields you want to bring in? And so once you have that, you'll be able to run your RSMF conversion and get your RSMF files. Now, let's talk about some of the advanced stuff, some of the quirky stuff. We're going to dive a bit into HTML here, so things may get a little bit crazy here. But at least now you know it can be done, and this is how it works. Let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the fun HTML stuff. Now, when I read those HTML files, I parse them out, and I save my HTML code right here. So if we hover over this, we can see the HTML section where data is coming from. This way, if you question something, if you don't think something was parsed right, you can just click here, copy and paste this into text editor, or just hover over it, and you could see what is inside this cell. And one thing you'll note is that date and time here do not have any seconds. However, in message crawler, they actually do have seconds. And that's why there is a separate field called HTML date. HTML date is coming directly from the HTML section. But where is this date coming from? Well, there is a separate section called script. And this script contains tons and tons and tons of other metadata. And there is a problem with this section. I believe it is not formatted correctly. I think Microsoft made a mistake here, and they did not encode some of these values correctly. And so I'm going to show you, I'm going to switch to an HTML. So this is what those HTML files look like in the raw forms, in the raw form that I'm parsing. And if I'm going to right click here and select inspect, we can see that we have our messages. If I hover here, it highlights that message, next message, and so on. If you do play around with this, you'll see that this is where metadata is stored. We have like the message header with all the information, and we have message content. So first problem I found is with this script tag. So I'm going to expand one of the script tags, and then I'm going to go to the second one, and I will expand this one. All right, and so what I was trying to do is programmatically load this script tag, but I was having tons of issues. A lot of them weren't working, and there were different errors. And my first thought was like, all right, it's my fault. I'm doing something wrong. And I was trying all kinds of stuff. And then when I opened this, I noticed a similar problem. Chrome also has issues reading this. So if you look at this section here, you see how everything's in red, right? All the letters are color red. However, when we go to the next section, you see how some letters are in red, and then it switches to green, and it's erroring out trying to parse this. And that's exactly where my application fails. So Chrome is failing at this, and even Microsoft tools, the Microsoft conversion tools that's supposed to parse this data, also error out. So that tells me that there is something wrong inside this HTML file, specifically script tag. So because of that, it's pretty difficult to pull in this metadata. I was able to do a manual workaround to get a date with seconds, but everything else is going to be very difficult to parse. Now, another problem that I found, and it's not on this document specifically, it deals with the actual body of the message. So if I go here and I expand, we have this paragraph tag. We have an opening of a paragraph tag, and we have a closing at the end. What I noticed is sometimes body will have an opening paragraph tag over here, and that will make this paragraph tag automatically close and be empty, and then the new paragraph tag opens. So what I had to do is search for all the paragraph tags and combine them together, otherwise I get blank message bodies. So those are the two problems that I found in this HTML. Aside from that, this seemed to parse okay. I'm able to read data, I see messages. There might be some more advanced things that are present in PST that are not available here. Again, we'll get to those in the future. Right now, this is the first iteration of the tool, so it should work if you happen to have an HTML file. Anyway, thank you guys for checking out this update of Message Crawler. Be sure to download a copy and give it a try. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you on another update.